It's time to check in on week 8 with our weekly recap. We are really trucking through the semester at this point, and I have 4 little areas that I want to go over with you before we head off of week 8 and into week 9. This week we talked about comprehension and the factors that involve our reader. Coming up in week 9, we're going to look at comprehension from the text factors. But when we look at that reader, we really have to get inside their mind, and that is what this week was all about. So one of those really important areas that I want to emphasize this week is that area of explicit instruction. And just a reminder, explicit instruction is where we teach a specific lesson to teach students directly about something, whether it be a comprehension skill or something an author does, or how we want them to think out loud. Anything that we talked about this week can be done as an explicit lesson. And this can be done in a small group or a whole group. It can be done even individually if it's necessary. And it usually involves scaffolding of a new skill. To do that scaffolding, you want to follow the I do, we do, you do model, where first you're demonstrating or thinking aloud and pointing things out to students. The next time you work explicitly with the same skill, you're doing it as the we do, where we're sharing the experience and we're doing something interactively. And then the last stage would be doing it as they're doing it independently or in small groups in the you do phase. And this gradually releases the independence of a new skill. So let's just say we're working on predicting. The first time you predict, you're going to predict out loud. So maybe you're reading The Scarecrow's Hat to the boys and girls. You're going to say, boy, I wonder what will happen next. I think that the chicken's going to go visit another animal because that's what he's been doing. You're just thinking out loud. And you do this as you read. And that's the I do. And you tell boys and girls, it's good to think about what happens next in a story. The next time you read a story with the boys and girls, you're going to predict together. And the last time you do this skill explicitly, if they're ready for it, then they do the you do, and they'll do the predicting and the citing of evidence, and you'll be the listener. It might not happen in a 1, 2, 3 kind of lesson format. It might take a couple times of an I do, a couple times of a we do until you get to the you do moments. But you have to do that for each new skill you're going to teach in the area of comprehension because they're so detailed and they're such higher level thinking skills. And you have to make sure that their brains are doing what you need them to be doing to understand the text. And that's explicit instruction. The second area I want to focus on is the interactive literacy experiences. And much of our week was spent on teaching those different components of comprehension, and I broke it down. And you'll notice in the presentation I broke it down to the comprehension strategies that we want to teach and introduce and interact with before reading, and the ones we would interact with during reading, and lastly, the ones we would interact with after reading. Or listening to a text. And this is really important to our reader because the way that their brains work is they have to encounter things in that moment. So interactive literacy experiences are where the students are involved with you in those we do moments before, during, and after reading. And the videos and activities in our presentation this week show you all different kinds of things that you can be doing, whether it be previewing one of the online resources, a video on YouTube about a strategy they'll be using, or a game you could play, or a graphic organizer you could fill out. Any of those are having the students work interactively with the text. And because they're interacting with the text, they're making meaning. And these meaningful connections are going to enhance their understanding and also help them remember what they're reading. And so interactive literacy experiences are very important. Those are the 2 real content-based recap areas. Just 2 reminders. First of all, last week, and actually the last 2 weeks, I have been disappointed in your discussion thread, especially the initial posting from most of you. A few of you are doing a great job, and I'm sure you know who you are. You can pat yourself on the back. But a lot of you, I believe that you could write your post before you go through my presentation. And that tells me you're not getting enough out of it, or you're not taking the time to write your discussion post. Um, I should look at that discussion post and know that you have new knowledge gained from the presentation. That's part of the reason I have you work so interactively with these presentations, because I want to make sure that you are getting as much as I can give you each week. And I want you to learn a lot. I have very high expectations for you in this course. And based on your discussion thread answers, I cannot say that some of you are learning at this point, and that concerns me a lot. So I'm hoping it's a matter of not taking the time to develop detailed answers in your discussion posts, but you need to show me what you're learning through those posts. So reminder, answer all parts of the question. So look on your syllabus or look in the presentation. It's there twice in each presentation, once at the beginning and once at the end. What do I want you to answer specifically? And then know that you're being graded on the content of those posts and the connections that you make. You need to really show me what you learned content-wise and then connect it to the presentation specifically, or to your textbook, or to your own life experiences. If you're not doing both of those pieces, then you're losing points each week on your discussion thread. The same is true on your comments to your peers. You have to give a quality comment to the peer. Not just saying I agree with you, or I think you're correct, or I like that. Really give some content. It is not going to be possible for you to give a quality answer in 2 or 3 sentences, and some of you are giving me that. You really are going to have 1 or 2 developed paragraphs. And it's not about quantity, but you have to answer all parts of the question, and most of these questions have 1 or 2 parts to them. So just a reminder coming up, if you haven't already done your discussion post for our week, this week's question was, describe the role teachers play in facilitating interactive literacy experiences and explicit instruction. And so you have to figure out how to answer that whole question. Okay, it's really important because that shows me what you've learned. I read your Dropbox submissions every week. I read your discussion posts, and I read every answer you put on our Padlet or our Stormboard. And that is my only way of knowing what you've learned. And as your instructor, it's really important for me to know what you've learned so I can gauge where we need to go next. So show me what you've learned this week. And also, if you haven't emailed me your lesson plan topic, both of the sides of the lesson plan demo were introduced, and so you can pick something from the left column and from the right column at this point, and let me know what you're doing. And remember, those aren't due until Thanksgiving. So hopefully you enjoyed the content of week 8. We'll hit comprehension again next week in week 9, and week 9 will tell you more about the text side instead of that reader side. Okay, see you then.